Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up.
Hello, Ben.
Hello, Jeremy. Happy nearly Friday, virtual Friday.
Yeah. Virtual Friday, yes. Happy Friday to you too. Recorded this week, but coming to you live and direct on a recorded medium via LinkedIn and everywhere else. Welcome to this week's edition of Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up, where we look at everything to do with the London market, technology, change, trains, all sorts of animals, all sorts of news this week, Ben. wide-ranging topics.
Yeah, it's going to be one of our more eclectic shows.
Yes, there we are. But let's start, Ben, with a survey around, well, something we've been talking around for a while, and in my predictions, at the beginning of the year, you might remember I said, I think there's going to be a return to the office. And you've been digging a little bit into the research around work from home and what that looks like. And bit of a story here.
So I'm not quite getting fed up, but I'm getting the same question lots of places, which is either the assertion that hybrid working is the cause of all evil in the modern world, or that it's the best thing since sliced bread. There's not much in between on this topic. And I'm not the only person saying that. So I decided that it would be good to look at some of the history as to what was going on. And I'll go back all the way to 2007 to a study that was done in the UK with the snappy title of Workplace Employment Relations and Work-Life Balance. But they are talking about work-life balance, which remember we used to talk about quite a lot. And one of the things that was in that study, it's a UK study, it's now stopped, it's probably been cut, I imagine. And it said that really there was no proven link at that time between productivity and flexible working. And there was another study that showed that, but that it was popular and it was low cost. So actually, and it was growing significantly. So flexible working from home, whatever we call it, even in 2007, was being encouraged actually by a lot of UK senior management. And I think you made the point that was a kind of time when there was like this, thing about hot desking and all that. So that was part of it. So that's going all the way back to 2007. So it's not as if flexible working has suddenly been invented in the pandemic. It was there before. I have to say that agencies worked on flexible working anyway for a long period. So we go through, and then we get to, I've looked at sort of, tried to find studies in the UK that were doing this stuff about the working situation and studies, but I couldn't find anything. But I did find there's a very big European study that's done. UK used to be in it, but Brexit means it's been kicked out of that one. But it doesn't matter, because I don't think the differences would be too great with UK in or out. But this study is called the European Working Conditions Survey, EWCS, right? That's a slightly snappier one than the other one. But it's the same kind of stuff. It's about what are the things in jobs that cause people to be happy or not happy ultimately. So they look at all these a lot of different factors, which I'll come on to. So the concept that they use to determine whether people are happy or healthy at work is this idea of job strain. And I think Ipsos, the research company we'll come on to in a minute, did this research, and they probably came up with this concept in conjunction with the European body. And so job strain is a kind of measure that they use, and it's about job demands versus job resources. So it's either things that you're asked to do or need to do versus the resources that support you. So early on, and background to this is that governments get very worried when large numbers of people are very unhappy in work, because it leads to lots of mental health issues, depression, and so on and so forth, and cost and low productivity as well. So this is really important factor for governments to look at. And what you can see here, however, is look at it by sector. You can see that the biggest job strain is in health at the top, transport, followed by agriculture and commerce, hospitality, but right at the bottom is financial services. So while we live in our bubble of insurance and financial services, actually, it does look as if this is a healthier, less job-strained environment for most people. Now, that's not to say there is no strain, no issues or anything. So that's kind of where that is. And what this study also says is that there are all sorts of factors you have to take into account that are interrelated when you're looking at happiness or less job strain. Things like, obviously, pay, working conditions, autonomy, flexibility. But there are other things, that play in on the other side of this, which are, your support at work, et cetera, et cetera. So they're those. Now, this study is a governmental-backed study, funded, and just to go to the next slide, and we can see some of the factors, the pros and cons. So these are the dimensions of job quality and corresponding job demands and job resources. So you can see on the left-hand side here, physical risks, obviously, if you're in a construction environment or similar, or a manufacturing plant, physical demands, intimidation, discrimination, work intensity, and so on and so forth. So there's a one there for self-employed as well. And then the other side is social support. That means support of your managers, your colleagues, the people who you work with, and I guess the people you work with right across the whole social sphere at work. And autonomy, and then flexibility right in the middle there. So that also includes working from home and work-life balance and things. So all of those things are kind of, assessed and totted up in this big survey, and then they estimate job strain. But the point they're making is actually quite complicated. And coming back to this thing, I think that what is tending to happen around flexible working or hybrid working is that people are taking it as one element and saying it's a bad thing. And I think CEOs, having probably supported this in the past, are now saying, oh God, this one thing that's changed quite a lot, or seems to have changed quite a lot, needs to be put back to where it was. Otherwise, we're losing this balance. Now, they may be right, they may be wrong, but I think it's sort of odd and not that rational to focus on just one aspect of this.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's either or, is what I'm trying to say.
And then I think you've got the Ipsos slide, which kind of delves into these kind of factors.
Yeah, so I was looking around and I was thinking, God, there's no research on this at all. But then I found this study. So well done to Ipsos and Box, I think they're called. So which is part of Ipsos. So this is a study that has been done specifically on flexible working, and it rather makes the same points that I've just made, which is it's a polarizing argument and debate, and we need to get some sense into it. So the headline results here, I'll just go through quickly. There are 8, but so majority of workers are spending most of their time at their employer's location, so in the office, 67%, fine. But only half of the people in that group prefer to feel they're spending the right amount of time, or what they consider to be the right amount of time. In other words, they'd like to spend less time than they're asked to spend in the office. So that's fair enough. But on the other side, innovation, transparent decision-making, career development tend to peak. So the survey finds that people are much more advocating their business, positive about their business, when they're in the office 3 to 4 days. Okay, so it's quite a big difference. So therefore, it does seem to support the argument that being in the office is positive for those things. Also, another supporting factor is loneliness seems to be higher, definitely seems to be perceived to be higher among younger office workers when they spend more time working from home. So that loneliness, maybe that's not what they anticipated, but it does build, and you can see the correlation. So the biggest drivers of work-life balance, and this has been discussed, is cost of commuting. So that's a big save. Obviously, if you're away, that saves you money, which is probably might be an issue, particularly now in cost of living scenario and wage inflation. But also what people perceive to be work-life balance. I've got a balance. I've got some relief, if you like, from being in the sort of more pressurized environment, perhaps, of the office. And there is this finding that employees who spend more time at home report less strain and better work-life balance. So those are not necessarily proven productivity gains, but they are how people feel. So they're quite important. When you apply, and then there's number 7 is when an employer applies a fully flexible approach, people tend to come in much less. then when you put anchor days in, so the point about these anchor days is, 3 days, 4 days you need to be in typically. That seems to mean more people come in. I mean, obviously it does, but when people are given the choice, if you like, of fully flexible, they tend not to come in very much. And you might say that then 3 and 4 kick in more.
Yeah.
And the final one, which is kind of interesting, I don't think we need to go into it now, but men and women benefit differently. We can imagine maybe some of the reasons for that. That women have more responsibility often for home life, domestic things, children, and so on and so forth. But that's I'm just sort of assuming that. But broadly speaking, the conclusion of this report is go for 3 days, 3-ish days for people, and you'll get the best of both worlds if you just look at this on its own.
Yeah, interesting. And then, are there any organisations that have actually had a crack at trying to? I think there's a couple of things I'll say before we move on to that, which is that I think, and we said this before we came on the show, it's about recognising what individuals do, how teams perform, what their job functions are, and coming up with plans that work for individuals, teams, and the organization as a whole.
Yeah.
And also being conscious that one size doesn't fit all, and everyone has unconscious bias built in. And you just got to recognize these things and make sure you're not plowing your furrow in one direction.
Yeah. So I think the kind of management literature theory from Harvard Business Review and so on is exactly that, which is that you're going to have to work at your own hybrid model and make it work. And you're going to have to look at all of those things, the responsibilities of individuals. You're going to have to look at their preferences, what they feel comfortable doing. And you're going to have to just work differently on all these, these kind of factors, and look at how work is done and whether technology can help and so on and so forth. And then you must apply equally. That's the other thing is really, really important in this thing, is to say that so that people who are in the office don't feel they're doing more work than people at home and vice versa. And that's the debate I've heard quite a lot, is people go, well, obviously people think if you're working at home, you're doing less. But then again, you probably end up doing more because you're still there at 8 o'clock on your laptop, who knows. Anyway, so that's kind of, you need to work that out. And one of the companies, an insurance business, good for them, Brit Insurance, well done. They did develop a model that seems to, well, it doesn't say whether it's actually worked, but it seems to have been implemented, where they took groups of 6 people, all sorts of job positions from very junior to very senior, and they said, well, work from home for 6 months and then come back with all your ideas, thoughts, and feedback. And they pulled all that together, shared it with the CEO, who said, yeah, well, that's all very interesting, and lots of those points are really valid. So and what they then did was created a Brit playbook, which was how we all work together. And they now have that hybrid kind of, for their own business, they have a kind of flexible model that works, and they know it works for all different types of people in all sorts of different circumstances. But it's very kind of bespoke. So, but honestly, I think coming full circle on all this is, it doesn't seem to me to be right. And I think we said this before, for someone, for example, like John Neal, to just call out everybody and say, you've all got to get back into the office. But that's his view, right? It's not based in any theory. It's not based on history. It's not based on any of these academic studies that have been done. It's just his view, right, that it's better. And I think nobody's going to listen to him, honestly, because they'll go and work somewhere else.
Yeah.
Where they're accommodated. And work is partly about accommodating people in order that they give you the return in their efforts and their ideas and whatever you need them to do. So I think it's got to be more carefully thought through. Yeah.
And it also comes back to this social media point where, as you started off by saying, it's either one thing or the other, and it isn't. It's very nuanced, and you've got to think about it for your own organizations and your employees to get the most out of it.
Yeah, and I think it occurs to me that a lot of what has been said is kind of top down. It's people who've been around for 35 years in the business and telling everybody else what they think should be done because that was what was good back in the day. Now, as you rightly said, you get exactly the opposite from the 23-year-old who's running an insurtech business saying, well, we don't need to work like that in the future. And it feels like there's a gulf. But I think the problem inherent in it is the kind of CEOs who's saying that what I did in the past is now what we should do forevermore today, and that's not necessarily right, because things change and evolve, and they have done, and you have to accommodate that somehow.
Definitely. Good. Right. So we've got a few more months, Ben, until the new year, and I have to come up with my predictions, and perhaps we can find some research to see whether people have returned back to the office, whether there was more people over the course of 23.
Well, yeah, I mean, certainly the study at the moment says that most people are kind of in the office. It'd be interesting to know who's doing the 3-day model and all that sort of thing. That's interesting.
Yeah, people I certainly speak to have got that in mind, and actually the senior managers and leaders tend to want to be in the office more than not. But that's probably just their makeup, their age, their demographic, and like you say, how it was. Yeah,
there's a lot of kind of fairly entrenched views on this. I mean, we're the perfect blend because I'm at home and you're in the office.
I am. Yeah, I don't like working at home. I don't believe in it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean. You're entrenched reactionary view of people like you. Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
Good. So there we are. You're the progressive. I'm the Philistine. And there we are. Who'd have thought?
Exactly.
All right. Thanks, Ben. That was really good. Let's move on to well, actually, I put together this little soundtrack, Ben, to go with my news. Here we go.
This train is formed of 10 coaches, platform 10 for the 12:14 Southern service to London Victoria. Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station. Luggage left unattended may be removed without warning or destroyed or damaged by the security services. The next train to depart from platform 11 will be the 12:10 service to Brighton. Calling at East Croydon, Gatwick Airport, 3 bridges, Haynes Heath, Burgess Hill and Brighton. This train is formed of 12 coaches.
This is a safety announcement. Due to today's wet weather, please take extra care whilst on the station. Surfaces may be slippery.
That's it. Who'd have thought that services might be slippy after wet weather? This is it's
a revelation to me. That thanks.
The revelation. So this was well, we touched on it last week when we were talking a bit about communication, but then you posted this, which I thought was very funny. Southwest Trains announced this morning that 9:36 delayed for 80 minutes due to animals on the track. And then the Reggie Perrin quote, 22 minutes late, escape Puma, Chessington North. Brilliant. Got lots of reaction, especially from Bart Patrick, Genesis, because if you ever follow Bart on social media, he will give you a running commentary on how bad Southern trains are. But that wasn't really the point. It's really to do with communication. And I suppose too much communication, not enough communication, and then just noise and drivel. And I was thinking about this last Tuesday because somebody had run across all the tracks at London Bridge Station. So the whole thing had shut down for around about 45 minutes. And nobody knew what was going on. No one could tell us what was happening or anything apart from someone was on the tracks. So you can imagine there were thousands of people there. And then all of a sudden the train just started working again and they got people off. But all the time in the background, it was just people telling you not to fall over or slip, or can you hold on to the escalator and face the right way? And could you just tell me?
There could have been a nuclear conflagration or something appalling happening, but those announcements would still be going as if everything was okay. And I call that the inverse rule of communication, which is the worse it is, the less communication there is about the issue. So if a train is 5 minutes late, they revel in the announcements about how sorry we are to have disrupted your day and all that sort of thing, where clearly your day hasn't been disrupted unless you're very odd by a 5-minute train delay. But then when it's cancelled or the whole network goes down, as you say, there's no information at all.
Yeah.
Or it's just perfunctory, which is the train's being cancelled. Good luck.
Yeah. See you later. This happened yesterday. You might have seen on the news on BBC where they kicked everybody off the London to Edinburgh train at Preston, and when that's it, there's no more trains, and people have to take cabs. Anyway, you can look that up. But coming back to the communication thing, if we take it then across to, and basically my point is, it's just really important to get the communications right and have them consistent, and not to have noise getting in the way of what the message is you're trying to convey.
Yeah, it's both verbal and written, isn't it? Because there are signs everywhere that tell you things you already know, and that's then, of course, there are people who can't see signs who are blind. I get that, for you're right in, but then it's added to 16 times over when you get onto the train. It's just filling a void that they think is there, but I don't know why.
Yeah.
Basically, people like the sound of their own voices, I think, mainly.
I'll tell you the other thing, just annoyingly, at London Bridge on a Friday afternoon, they now put a jazz band in there at peak time. I mean, that just doesn't help. I mean, it really doesn't help at all. Oh,
God. You're not very joyous, are you? You just dance along.
The acoustics are terrible. I mean,
that's true. Yeah.
It's terrible. And you got all this ring around. Anyway, the point being that you've got to get your communications straight. You got to understand what you're trying to say and say it clearly and concisely in a medium that is right. Coming back to your point about them putting signs up everywhere, and also announcements and sending you text on social media.
All the communication has to be appropriate. I think it's rather like the children, what they thought was a lovely idea of children singing the national anthems at the rugby. But of course, that isn't really what you want from a national anthem, is some squeaky little kids singing it, as angelic as they might be. You want some full-bodied thing to get you roused and riled up for the game, don't you? And so they changed it.
Into battle.
Yeah.
Well, so we touched, actually you spotted on Insure TV an interview with Kelly Whittington, who is Director of Property and Specialty Claims at Aviva. I managed to dig out the clip because you were impressed by her communications. So let me...
I've talked to several people about it as well, by the way. It's not just me. Lots of people did see this, I think. So.
Yeah. Let me share my screen and play just a little clip of this interview, because we think it is pretty good. And well done, Insure TV, for putting it on.
Hi, I'm Joe McFarlane, Claim Service Manager at Aviva. I'm joined today with Kelly Whittington, Director of Property and Specialty Claims. Today, we're going to be going through our performance, strategy, and latest key initiatives from our claims department. So Kelly, if we can just dive straight in, I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about our strategy at the moment.
From a claims point of view, actually, we're very aligned to the Aviva overall strategy, and that consists of 4 key priority areas. One is about the service that we're delivering to our customers and our broker partners. The second is around how we're growing as a business. The third is how are we driving efficiencies that benefit all customers. And the fourth is our focus on sustainability, which is a key priority for the group overall and within claims.
Thanks for that, Kelly. Wondering if we could dive in and break some of those down a little. So if we start with motor.
Service has been a challenge for us in motor, and I hopefully that's not a surprise to anyone. We recognise it and we have been focusing on that. But we do recognise that it's been difficult, and we really appreciate everybody's patience. From a property and a casualty perspective, actually service has been pretty stable, and the feedback that we get from brokers and clients using those teams is broadly positive. That's been some conscious efforts that we've put into that, and we're pleased with our progress. We have had some feedback that our property suppliers haven't always performed in line with expectations. We have made some changes to that supply chain, and we will continue to do that based on feedback. So it's really important for us to keep getting that feedback. So please do keep it coming.
So yeah, just a clip really to kind of exemplify, just how clear the messages are, both in terms of the strategic ambition, but also them being open and honest and transparent about some of the challenges that they've come up against and what they're doing to fix them.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that, so when I listened to that, I thought that first bit was, the first bit was a kind of bit of corporate speak, almost about our aims and strategies. And I thought, here we go. Here's a very loyal, earnest person who's going to, reel out the party line about, and it's all working brilliantly and everything else, which you see in almost every other corporate communication from insurance or financial services businesses. But no, she then straight in, right at the beginning, says, we have had some problems. Yeah, and we are looking at those and sorting those out, and we're sorry about that. But that's about managing expectations, which is good. I talk about that a lot, is manage expectations. So this was obviously a corporate message. I mean, it's someone from Aviva interviewing someone from Aviva, so not a lot is going to go wrong in that interview. But you're not going to get derailed. But honestly, I think the whole setup was great, because you've got the this sort of overarching thing, but it's the same thing you would do if you were dealing with a single claim, which is to say, we've had a few problems with this, and I'm not going to lie, there's going to be a bit of a delay, but let's talk through what is going to happen and so on. So you're managing, you're being transparent, and you're doing all that, and then even to the point where, of course, she throws in some good news about one class of business, which is great, but she leaves that slightly open to say, I hope people agree with me on that. She's not asserting things here. She's always got this quite clever and astute way of saying, I'm not right. I'm not perfect. We want to listen, and that's great. And then she goes into some very specific things about, albeit we think this is quite good, we've also had some negative feedback about property suppliers, which we're looking into. So the whole setup, from customers being the number one priority through to how Kelly here, I mean, I don't know her, talks about this, was really good. I think really refreshing and different. And I would say it's, we want to hear more of that.
Definitely. So that was good. So yeah, thanks for Insure TV for putting that on their site. Thanks for Kelly as well. And you managed to get derailed and delays into your assessment of of the interview, Ben. So well done on those.
Puns. This preparation goes, just doesn't happen. Doesn't just happen like that.
Indeed. Good. Right, there you go. Trains and insurance. Right. Regional news, Ben. News from the regions. You've been traveling around. I've seen your social media. You've been all over the shop.
Been all over the shop. I'm like Joe Biden traveling the country, spreading the news. Well, actually, I'm doing the tour of the regions with Bieber, which I think is a great idea. So Graham Trudgill, who's the CEO, David Sparks, and lots of others at Bieber have organised this every year, and it's a way of communicating with the grassroots effectively of the business. But it draws in not just brokers, but insurers, other parties like loss adjusters and things. So you get a really nice, interesting mix of people, and they put some speakers on, and I'm one of those. I'm talking about the surveys. So it's very informative. So I was in Bristol and Wales, South Wales this week. So the issues, just briefly, I'll do this every time we do it. So the issues were hybrid working came up quite a bit, was discussed about how do we kind of sort this out, and problems of things around live chat, for example, on claims portal, saying, someone's asked me about that, about how can we get back to the insurers to say you need to man this live chat because it's very good. So back to the point Kelly was making, a lot of feedback, good feedback in each of these regions from the grassroots. And I think this is partly where we need to start to focus around real issues and good things as well when they happen. So rather than this sort of tendency in the insurance industry to broad brush over everything. So this stuff of going into the grassroots is really interesting. And actually, I'd just say also a very interesting talk by a chap from Sedgwick and his younger kind of protege assistant, I don't know what she's called, who were talking about BI and the issues related to how things are measured when you're assessing business interruption. It was really good. It was very funny talk, and it was also very informative. So yeah, learn a lot. So we're next going to the Midlands week after next.
Excellent. So the tour of the regions continues. Yeah. And what's going to happen at the end, Ben? Is it going to be a report or like a summary or?
Well, I'm going to bring out some of the I'm going to bring out some of the feedback and summarize it, I think. And we've got some initiatives going off the back of lots of these meetings. So we're signing up firms who take part in the survey, which is great. We're talking about things like e-trading. So we're going to be developing a study there with Bieber and some of the tech providers. And we're also doing some work with young brokers because they've got quite strong young brokers. And we're looking at can we get under the skin of some of the issues and challenges and what they want. And those will probably be done in conjunction with some of the kind of bodies representing younger people or diversity and things like that. So yeah, there's a lot coming out, and while it will get summarized, I think there's a huge number of ideas coming out. So it's great, really. It's good.
Excellent. Right. Yeah. Keep us posted on all that news. Thank you, Ben.
I'll see the photos coming.
Good. Yeah, I like those posts. They're good. Okay. Right. Let's wrap things up. What are you doing this weekend? Anything good?
No, not particularly. I'm house hunting again, but I probably will be going climbing. So I did my first, as I mentioned last week, I did my first climbing course, which was good. I enjoyed it.
Excellent.
I was terrible. I realized I literally know nothing about climbing. And so I've been watching YouTube videos, trying to learn from a YouTube video how best to scale these tricky climbing walls. But I learned a lot, very short period. So it's good. It's good fun.
Yeah. I sometimes stumble across on Eurosport kind of those kind of climbing racing competitions.
Yeah, sport climbing. Big.
Yeah. I mean, it's unbelievable how quick those kids can go at those.
Well, yeah, where I was climbing, there were 3 kids who were GB climbers, number 3 and number 4 in the country, and they were literally like Spider-Man without the suit on.
Yeah.
And the webbing thing that helps them.
Yeah. If I could do that. Yeah. If I could climb like that, I would definitely wear a Spider-Man suit all the time underneath my clothes.
Well, yeah, the one thing to note is it's not about your arms. Your arms are the least important part.
It's the person pushing you up, is it?
No, it's your legs. It's your toes and your legs. It's all about the legs levering you up and giving you so it's all about efficiency, but and knots as well. It's best that your knot is well tied. Because the official word is decking.
Oh, really?
Basically means falling off and hitting the deck.
Yeah.
Not the stuff you have in your patio.
No. All right. Well, make sure that knot's tied tight. I'm doing something new this weekend, so I'm going surfing on Saturday in Cornwall. Yeah. So I don't know how that's going to go, but there's some kind of storm down there at the moment, so I don't know whether we'll be doing
today. Yeah, you'll be all right. Yeah, today.
All right. Okay. Yeah. And then Sunday we're playing football. So activity weekend for all of us. So,
it is. Yeah, we're fit as
absolutely fit.
Well, pictures of surfing would be good if you actually get up on the board.
I very much doubt I'll be again up on the board, but maybe on the beach, not in the sea. But I'll get a picture.
Yeah.
Yeah. Call me Johnny Utah. One for the kids. Okay, right. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We will see you next week. If you're coming to London Market Claims, we'll see you on Tuesday, and have a good weekend.
Bye, everybody.